we get a lot of orders that are set up for failure before we get to them.
Yeah.
Okay? And when that happens, our policy is to reach out to everybody and make sure that everybody's aware this is set up for failure. And it doesn't matter if it's a 4-stop load and we can't, because of what times the receivers are able to accept the deliveries versus what time is planned. There's a gap there. So at some level, there's always going to be some set up for failure before we get orders. So that's going to be a percentage, whether it be 20 or 30% or 10%, really is determined by how the loads schedule out, what availability is there, and then what shipping availability windows there are for shipping the orders. So for a hood, for example, 24 hours, 7 days a week, that's great. But when you call, you may end up with, we're booked until 9 p.m. And you say, you can bring your driver in, but we can't guarantee we'll get him out. If somebody misses, we'll get him in and out as soon as possible so that you can start off in a successful scenario. And there is no perfect, but I think you have to communicate at that level. Now, what I think is difficult is fighting the deductions for lates after the fact.
Yep.
I think in every scenario, that's a failure situation. It goes back to the old adage: the longer someone holds on to your money, the more it becomes theirs, right? So you shouldn't be in a position where a shipper or a receiver is in a position where their bills aren't supposed to be paid in full, and if there's going to be a shortage of any type, then we need to ask you to be proactive with us ahead of time, so that we don't get surprised. Wouldn't that make sense from a partnership perspective and an supply chain integrity position, Joe?
Yeah, I think it would, John.
So if you don't know it real time and no one makes you aware of a late delivery at any of their facilities, then you can't come and claim foul afterwards.
Well, I guess the way to do that would be to actually maybe put something in the sales contract between the supplier and the receiver, words to that effect.
That's a very good point, because we have seen shippers putting visibility, right, as a requirement in the contract with carriers.
Right.
But why not put in the sales contract between the shipper and the consignee?
Right.
Then everybody is held accountable.
And I think that if, from a sales perspective, everyone wants sales, right? We all have a sales gene in us, okay? I want to sell to more customers. I want more loads. I want to do a better job than everybody else, and fortunately we do that. But that doesn't translate always into more sales. If it was in the contract that they would have to provide you information ahead of time before anything was deducted, then how many of these 50 to 70 percenters would end up being the receiver's waste of time? And would they give up? Because right now, they're able to waste your time. Yep. Right? It wouldn't even trickle down to transportation at the level that it is, accounts receivable, trying to collect, if AP and AR aren't going to be bothered with it, then at some point, does sales do the research on these with their customer? I mean, whose time waster does this become?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Supply Chain Squares.
I'm going to go with Todd Burke.
Going with Todd. Well, it's got to be long enough that you can't Google it. I made an agreement with Wendy Workman that I wouldn't let you do that.
I have it on voice search, so as soon as you ask the question, it comes up.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
You need to hire the guy, the background.
Sitting behind Slade.
Be like your phone a friend. That's what you do.
What actor, Joe, born in Watertown, New York in 1958, starred in many films such as G.I. Jane, Crimson Tide, A History of Violence, and drove a truck before becoming an actor?
Patrick Swayze.
Hey.
Well, I think in our case, Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we go and we do the research on a deduction to find out a time is wrong, we've always gone back through customer service and or the correct salesperson to take that back to that customer. Here's the proof. Sometimes there's a layer there. There's certain customers we can go right to where we need to be, to the person that made the deduction. We in transportation customer service, if you will, can go back to that person and to Nathan's point, you prove they were wrong and it gets fixed. There's other customers that you've got to go back through the correct layers to get that fixed, which takes more time.
Yes.
Interesting. So I don't have one shipper that doesn't complain and isn't disgruntled and frustrated by these scenarios.
As an ex-shipper, I'm frustrated and concerned about all of it.
This is a good one, John. We should bring everyone into a workshop and figure it out.
Well, but I think to get there, we have to have our receivers and customers that are making the deduction.
No, even them. Bring them as well.
They have to want to participate. So if you're talking about removing a profit center for someone, that's a scenario. So what I'm hearing is, so Pat, for example, your job and your title is Director of Logistics, Warehouse, Food and Beverage. And Scott, your title is Senior Director of Logistics, Customer Service for Warehouse, Food and Beverage. Mm-hmm. So when it comes in and it trickles down, it's both of you that stop your day-to-day responsibilities to chase this?
Our teams chase them, and
Okay.
then it bubbles back up to us, and then we get involved.
So it not only hits your docket of things to deal with, you give it to the people in your transportation network to try and go get the proof or to get the information or the facts.
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to assume where your people sometimes in the past have reached out to us for the proof because we're a provider for you. You reach out to us for the proof and we provide you the data and the information that we have. This may streamline a lot of this process when you actually go live with 4 kites.
Yes, we're one of the reasons why we took a look at them to see what kind of value can they bring us in the forefront, so that we're not doing so much after the fact digging.
Yeah.
More real time.
Very good. Well, we'll continue that on the next chapter here of this. Thank you everybody for participating, and we'll see you soon.
Continue watching on the next episode of the Stay in Your Lane podcast.